Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. We had a football match and it was a really fun one as well. I think yesterday proved that we need football. I think that's as simple as that. You know, there's been a lot of talk about football being off right now, and obviously Tottenham have had the last 3 matches called off. Yesterday was just everything that was fun about watching football. It really was. It was a lovely release, I think, from probably everything going on in the world right now. We had 4 goals, some very good ones within it. A red card, a potential red card, 2 or 3 penalty shouts, VAR decisions. There was loads went on. Players coming in from the cold that came in did really well. Understrength teams, others having to make their mark. Tactical battle going on. And a really, really good crowd at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They were, 45,000 went along. It's something 45,000 and a couple of hundred. Which fair play to them, because I completely also understand why some people might have wanted to stay away, being so close to Christmas and the fear of getting COVID and having their Christmas kind of ruin their plans. But 45,000, made decision to go, and they made some great noise. It was a fantastic atmosphere at times, and I think a lot of that came from the efforts as they saw on the pitch. And that's all you can ask for as the bare minimum from footballers, is to give you their all. What else did it have? It had Son scoring another important goal on his 300th appearance for the club. It had Harry Kane scoring again, his 2nd Premier League goal of the season. It had a bit of everything. It had grumbling managers afterwards, or one grumbling manager. I loved it, honestly. I just even though Spurs probably will feel they should have got all 3 points, and I'm sure Liverpool will as well, I feel I just came out of the game just thinking, oh yeah, that's football. That's what it's all about. That's why we love it so much, and that's why I, want to write about it. Games like that, I can come back, or during it, or I can come back and I can just write about that game, because it had a bit of everything. Whereas sometimes there'll be matches you come back from and you say, oh my God, what am I going to write about now? But that was completely opposite. It's fantastic. And I think it really bore the fingerprints all over it of Antonio Conte. And I think that's a massive credit to him, that after 2 weeks of being an utter disaster in terms of, as a coach, trying to prepare for stuff, let alone the health and safety element that you feel responsible for, of course. And obviously I was, had that press conference with him ahead of the Rennes game, where you could see he was genuinely scared about kind of what was happening at the training ground and what it meant for players and their families and their loved ones and everything. To have come through that, to then have a training ground closed down for 3 days, then to come back and be training only essentially a skeleton squad, then to start having some of those players come back, and I know those players had a range of symptoms, and pretty much all of those who had symptoms when they came back were absolutely shattered during training sessions. It really knocked it out of them. So to go through all of that and then take on the probably up there with City of being the best team in Europe right now, or certainly in the Premier League, and to come away from a match that really you probably felt Spurs, had the better chances and should have won. I think that's huge, huge credit to Conte. And what a week of training and work. And like I say, we're going to talk about the players that came into the team and did so well. And that's through his coaching. You can talk about what he's won. You can talk about the big transfers that he gets in. And obviously he disputes that as the thing. But what he's always said, and I think it is spot on, and I'm seeing this more and more right now, is ultimately he coaches players. That's his biggest talent, is his ability to improve players. And I think we're seeing that. This was an understrength Liverpool side as well. They had their issues. They had no Van Dijk, no Henderson, no Fabinho, no Thiago. But they still had, a lot of what you'd call their kind of big game players. You had your Salah, of course, Mane, Firmino was on the bench. You had Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Alisson in goal. And and Milner obviously a stalwart of the team. This was not like a second string cup side kind of thing that they'd put out. This was as strong as they could get. And I felt, if anything, the two teams kind of balanced up, I guess, in what they had available. So really, we're going to talk about some of the things Klopp said afterwards, and I felt it was quite balanced, to be honest, in terms of the squad selection available to both teams. It was great. It was really good. You can tell I'm still kind of replaying it in my head. I really, really enjoyed it. Let's talk about the Klopp comments after, because it's a good way of addressing some of the things about the match itself. So one of the things he said, if you haven't seen it, he said in his press conference afterwards, essentially that Tottenham's tactic was just to boot the ball as far as they could, and then Son and Kane got on their bikes. I don't know really. Well, I can only assume he's got that from Eric Dyer. Played 2 or 3 pretty good diagonal balls out to Sessegnon down the left. That happened a few times. But, not hoofed long balls. They were very measured balls over the top, which Sessegnon took in his stride and it was really good with. A bit like Toby Alderweireld used to play those ones. There was the odd clearance where they maybe panicked Tottenham. But the stats show that Liverpool actually played more long balls than Tottenham, and by a fair distance as well. I thought it was a strange comment. A lot of the game that I'd probably compare it to, which reminded me of, was when Spurs beat Leicester at home 3-0 under Mourinho, where they just kept picking them off on the counter-attack. They were so, so good that day. And this reminded me of that, albeit without the clinical edge from Tottenham in the final third. Every time Tottenham got the ball, they quickly turned, broke. I wouldn't even say it was long balls. I'd say it was more short passes. It was quick, work up the pitch. Kane or Son holds the ball and the other goes on and they kind of run through. I thought that was look at the 2 goals. You look at the first goal was lots of quick movement and passing, and Harry Winks obviously winning that tackle. And then it was played through, slide rule pass, and Kane puts it away. Second goal, if you watch that, there's a lot of very good passing around Tottenham's half before Winks again gets away and plays the ball through that Alisson makes a mess of, and Sonny puts it into the empty net. So, yeah, instantly that one. And I'm a big Jurgen Klopp fan. I really like what he's done. I love his football philosophy. And what he's done with Liverpool, I really like the way they play. But I just kind of felt, and some other people have told me that I don't know, because I don't really see enough of his post-match press conferences to know if this is the case, but some other reporters have told me that when Liverpool things don't go their way, it can maybe come out after a game and not be particularly great towards the opposition. And I kind of felt that was the case yesterday. The Spurs deserved more credit than I think he gave them. I felt both sides had chances to win the game, and we're going to talk about the refereeing decisions as well. But I felt Tottenham had the better chances. I felt Alisson had more to do than Hugo Lloris. And I thought, I don't know. I do wonder sometimes whether they're covering up something about their own team's performance when they talk like that. Someone pointed out that he's blamed the wind before, things like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I say, what was the other one? Oh, that was it. He came out, he said Tottenham... He was complaining about Tottenham not revealing the names of those who've had COVID, which, you've heard me say a million times. It's up to a player. If a player doesn't want to give permission for their name to be read out and their medical records to be said, that's that. It's different to an injury. A player can get an injury in a game, we can see that. Or they can have a little injury and we know that they're going to be out for a certain amount of time. That's just what it is. But when it's a medical issue, when they've had a virus, and especially in today's climate, if they don't want that to be known, they don't want that to be known. So he was going on about that. He went on about that pre-match, and he went on about it after the match. And then he came out with a statement saying, so they had all of that, and then it was pretty much the same 11 that they'd normally put out, apart from Højbjerg. And I was just like, what? When he said that? It was really weird. It was like, no, it wasn't. There was only 6 players from Spurs' last Premier League game started on Sunday against Liverpool. That entire midfield was a completely unknown entity, really. It was Winks on Dembele and Ali, who play so few minutes, especially under Conte. And obviously you had Sessegnon in there as well. That maybe he just saw Kane and Son and just thought, they've got the big players out. It's like, well, by that same logic, you could look at the Liverpool team and say, same old Liverpool team. got Salah, Mane in there. Alisson's playing, Milner's playing. It's like, yeah, I thought that was another strange comment. It was almost like I don't really get the point of what he was trying to make. What's the other thing? And of course, he was talking about the refereeing decisions. I mean, the refereeing decisions, we can kind of rattle through those now quite quickly, really. I felt, if I'm going to be completely honest, I thought Harry Kane probably should have been sent off. I think so. I heard his interview after the game where he was saying, I was surprised I even got a yellow. It was just, a full-blooded challenge kind of thing. But I think I agree with Klopp on that one. I think had Robertson's leg been planted, I think it could have been pretty horrific, to be honest. And it was interesting because Kane was really pumped up. It was like, this is the Kane we've been waiting to see. And he was fighting for everything. And he probably took it too far. And it wasn't a good challenge at all. So yes, I think he would have a case to make there that maybe he should have been sent off. But then, of course, Robertson himself, then at the end of the game, did ridiculous. I mean, I'd say maybe with Kane's one, I don't think there was intent. I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think there was intent. I think he was trying to win the ball. It looked like he was. Whereas with Robertson on Emerson, like in, about 77th minute or so, he knew he was going to hack that player's leg to get the ball. There was no way of getting that ball. The player's leg was there. It wasn't like it's suddenly, whoa, his leg's there. He just absolutely smacked through him. I was other side of the pitch and I saw Emerson almost like do a somersault. He was kicked. Often we hear players scream and we think, oh, footballers. But my God, completely understandable. So whether that levels it out or not is a different thing. Obviously Kane sent off early in the game, could have changed it a lot. That's fair. But what I'd say on the penalty situations, the penalty claims, I felt they kind of balanced themselves out. I mean, Emerson on Jota, yes, probably was a penalty. But then if you're by that same logic, I think the Dele Alli move, Dele Alli getting a push in the back, similar thing. Very similar scenario. And, Winks went down in their box as well. I wouldn't say that was a defining factor in the match. It was a strange one. And then obviously you could also argue that Liverpool got the benefit of things with their second goal, which for me, in the moment, I couldn't actually see it. It was only when I came back home. I didn't get a very good replay at the stadium. When I came home and I watched a proper clip of it, Salah puts his head down and just completely doesn't get anywhere near the ball and essentially pats it on with his hand. I mean, maybe if you want to argue, maybe ball to hand, but it looked like the motion of him trying to head it essentially was always hand to ball. And Conte said afterwards, because Klopp had been quite vocal, he was like, for some reason he didn't mention, Salah's hand in that. And, he did the old Arsene Wenger, did Conte, of like, I didn't see it kind of thing. I didn't see any of it, but I didn't see any of the moments. Which is quite impressive to have not seen any of the moments. To be fair, he was saying back on a TV. But, yeah. And he said his staff, they said it was incredible that the goal was allowed. And I think Liverpool maybe got away with it on that one as well. So, the old swings and roundabouts, all of that, is it all balanced up? Probably. I'd probably say 2-2 was just about a fair result. Tottenham had a lot of chances they should have put away. A lot of big moments going forward, which I felt Liverpool probably didn't. But it was just a great game of football. It was. And I think it was, for the players, the Tottenham players now to be disappointed after that match is a good thing. It's a cliche, but it is a good thing. It shows that they have more belief in themselves now and they feel they should have got a better result out of that. It was not the game I expected to see. I'll be completely honest. Liverpool have been so good recently, and I've seen a few of their games in recent weeks and months, and I just think we thought they were going to. I saw on social media, oh my God, like Salah's going to be up against Sessegnon. Oh my God, they're going to tear Spurs apart and all this. And I thought Spurs played really well. They did. Some little sloppy moments, but when you say sloppy, often that's about the attacking movement of the opposition. Liverpool are up there with the best when it comes to that. So I was even looking back at the goals and I was trying to find kind of who to really find fault with. And yeah, there was little things I'm sure they'll analyse and they'll think, your positioning wasn't great, you didn't track that man, things like that. But I'd actually say that the first goal was maybe more about very, very good movement. I'd say maybe Sanchez could have tracked Mane better initially. But I think the run and the cross and then the header were excellent, and the movement of Jota to get into that position. Second goal, like I say, I think of course there was Davies' half clearance as well that wasn't great in the first one. But yeah, also in the second one, it's also a case of obviously the hand, which changed things slightly. But yeah, I do think it was much of a muchness. I do, and I think this was a good Spurs performance. This had a lot of promise, and Antonio Conte is still unbeaten in the Premier League. He is. He's he's really starting to find his path with this Tottenham team, and I think that's a big thing. And I think those players are starting to respond to what he's telling them to do, which is even bigger, because it's something that maybe previous managers haven't been able to get out of them, and then that's more to the detriment, I think, of the players themselves. And we've got to talk about those players who have come in and did a great job. Harry Winks, I know he has his detractors, those people who really aren't big Harry Winks fans. He was excellent. He was superb. I had him as my man of the match in my player ratings, and then not long after, the Spurs fans voted them their man of the match as well. He has actually looked quite bright under Conte a fair amount of the times he's been involved. There's a little bright cameo against Vitesse in the first game. Against Leeds, I felt he played pretty well as well. I think he came off the bench against Brentford as well. And yeah, this performance for him was one of his best probably in a while. He covered so much ground. He worked so hard. You might have heard me say early in the season, at the first game of the season, Jeffin Tanganga set the tone for the match against Man City with a booming challenge early on. Winks very much did that in the 13th minute with his challenge, which essentially set up the first goal for Tottenham. It got the crowd whipped up. They absolutely started going, and the ball was very quickly worked to Kane, and Spurs got the goal. It was, Winks was excellent. I was really, really kind of happy for him, because I see some of the stuff that's people tagging him in on Twitter. Yeah, this is a guy that's an academy product, one of their own, and I think we forget, and I'm guilty of this as well as a journalist as well, and sometimes we forget how good players have been. People get quite annoyed sometimes when I mention the fact that I've been in the Bernabeu watching Harry Winks be superb against Real Madrid. I've watched him play against Dortmund, Juventus, Liverpool. This performance yesterday reminded me a lot of his performance against Liverpool at Wembley a few years back when Spurs won 4-1. He was dominant that day. And he played so well yesterday. And what I like about what he's doing under Conte is he's playing that anchorman role in front of the back three, but he's very much got a brief to push on and play balls through. And because his passing is good, this is what's always maybe annoyed me about Winks, is he's got this reputation as a sideways passer, and perhaps at times he's been worried or scared to take risks. And I actually think that, well, he's shown it. He's shown it in the last few games that he's got that ability to thread a through ball or a ball over the top or something like that. And yeah, he was doing a lot more of that yesterday, and he was setting up chances. He was putting Tottenham away up the pitch, and obviously it was his ball through for the second goal that ended quite a nice move, but Alisson obviously came out and made a complete mess of it, and Sonny gets that kind of knock into the empty net. I asked Conte about Winks afterwards. I said, what did you make of his performance? And actually asked him about Dele as well. But with Winks, he said, the thing that's really struck him about Winks is the effort and desire he's putting on in that training ground. Every session, he's absolutely going for it, trying to show him what he can do. And he said, and that's essentially just carried on in the match. He did everything he asked of him. And he said, playing in that number 4 position, as he called it, in front of the back three, he said he's very, very good in that role. Maybe he's not quite as good in a 2, in a kind of an orthodox 2 alongside each other. But when you've got, say, Dembele and Ali playing just ahead of him, and he's back here at the pivot of that little triangle, he's very, very good. And I was delighted for him because, it was October, wasn't it, away in Vitesse. He was talking about just how little football he was playing and how he loved Tottenham, but he was probably going to have to go. And, I'm hearing that I think this kind of performance was the proof that Conte felt, he's felt that there's something about Winks that he can get more out of him. And I think this performance yesterday kind of essentially rubber stamped that for him, and that was his thinking. And I know a fair few people maybe would like to see Harry Winks leave, but again, I can only come back to the whole homegrown issue. You start ditching all your homegrown players out the window, maybe get away with one, but if you're going to put 1, 2, 3, whatever out in the window, you're going to have problems with your squad if you're not going to replace them with similarly British players. I see all these people saying, get player A, B, C, D, E out the way. And then I always look at the players they want to bring in, and they're all these kind of European wonder kid types you'd see on Football Manager or FIFA or whatever. And you kind of think, you can't swap them for them. You'd have to bring in more British players to kind of keep that balance in your squad numbers. So I think Winks, again, I think some people won't like that, because I even saw some people after the game saying he wasn't that good, which is, come on, you've got to have a bit of objectivity. There's been players that I don't think are playing particularly well or don't bring something to the squad, but if they play a very good game, then fair play. I thought Winks was really, really good. Dele Alli, obviously, I asked about him as well in the same kind of question to Conte. And he said, Dele in that 3-5-2, he said it really suits him nicely. He obviously played in that midfield three for Tottenham. Obviously a bit different because it was in front of a back four. But I felt under Nuno playing in that back three, it was more of a defensive role. He got forward sometimes, but I felt in the Conte system yesterday, he got a lot of attacking opportunities. He got to really drive the ball. He got to go out on the left and then drive inside. And he made an impact. I think I'd probably go as far to say that was the best Dele Alli performance I've seen in a few years. He's had little kind of moments where he's started to kind of show what he can do again. Little things like, obviously there was an overhead kick in Europe. I think he's forced an own goal against Fulham, didn't he? Little moments where he's been good. But for me, as a whole performance, I think this was one of his best. He was very rusty in the final third. The chance where he was putting it into the corner and Alisson made a very good save, I would probably say he'll be disappointed, Ali, of not just burying that. Alisson shouldn't have really had the chance to do that. Maybe even you take it on a step and whack it in. There was the moment when the ball was played to him and he kind of did this, I think it hit maybe his ankle as he was trying to get it across to Kane, and he kind of scuffed it slightly, and it just gave Alisson the time to get across and close down Kane. But other than that, I felt he played really well. He was driving forward. I got some stats that I'd looked up. Or I'd seen. I'd like to say I investigated deeply to find them, but I think they just appeared. They may have been Sky, either Sky's or BBC stats. And apologies to whoever it was. He registered 6 dribbles, which is more than anyone else on the pitch. He was ranked second in the match for winning 18 duels. He won possession back 8 times, which is the second highest among the players on the pitch. And he made 4 clearances, also second highest. And he really got stuck in. He was joint top on the pitch for fouls committed with 4. The thing I'd say with Dele, which maybe differs slightly from Harry Winks, is that like I said, with Winks, I feel he showed that he can fit Conte's formation. I feel with Ali, maybe he showed that, yes, he can fit in a 3-5-2. But I don't think Tottenham are going to play that 3-5-2 a lot. I feel that that's the formation that Conte is going to bring out against the big guns, against the Liverpools, the Chelseas, the Man Cities. I don't feel that that's a signal for Ali that he's going to get regular minutes. I mean, potentially he could play in the 3-4-1-2 as the one behind the 2. And, this may well be the performance that tells Conte, you can trust me. I just feel that perhaps, and I hope I'm wrong in terms of, I want Dele Alli, of course, to be a success at Tottenham. But I do wonder whether this was a shop window performance. Not saying that Dele was trying to put himself in a shop window, but more, a lot of teams would have taken notice of this and seen, oh, do you know what? He can still do it. And I think he could fit our formation. Whether it's someone like a Newcastle will look at that and think, maybe we should make a move for him if he wants to come to us and play week in, week out. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what unfolds in the next probably 6 weeks or so. 5 weeks, is it? 5, 6 weeks. But yeah, I was really happy to see Dele playing so well. I think that's the key thing. It was just a little reminder that, and it's the same with Winks, It's that old cliched expression that, form is temporary and class is permanent. Whatever you think about those players, Winks, you don't get called privately behind the scenes, my little Iniesta by Mauricio Pochettino, if you're rubbish. I always remember Winks, I think it was one of the American tours, when he was told that that's what Poch called him behind the scenes, his little private nickname, not to his face. That when Winks was told, he was like, "Oh, really? That's really cool." And like I say, I remember that year when Spurs got to the Champions League final in 2019. People kind of gloss over how good Winks was that year. He had to be a real integral part of that team. He was very good. And even in the final, everything was made about the fact that Kane came back after 2 months out injured and was poor in the final. But people maybe kind of forget that Winks also had been out for 2 months, but Poch wanted him back in that team. And he played pretty well. He's pretty bright. He played for about an hour or so, and he did well enough on the day. But obviously, everything after that disaster of a night obviously has got washed away in the sands of time, really. But yeah, I felt with Winks, it's just a case of a guy, and he said it himself in October, just never had the minutes to have any rhythm anymore. And he'll make a mistake and he'll get lambasted for it by the fans. He won't then be in the team again for a while, and he never really finds that rhythm. And I think with Dele was one of the most exciting young players in Europe. I think there's probably differing factors behind why he hasn't hit those high notes anymore. But he's still only, is he 25? I think he might be 25, maybe going to be 26 soon. There's still time for Dele to come good, and whether it's at Tottenham or not, I don't know. We'll see, but I'd love it to be at Tottenham. And Ryan Sessegnon, he was really good. We're looking at the other end of the scale now. It's someone who's only 21 and who has just had a nightmare in the 2 years or so since he came to the club. Just injuries. Had that really good loan at Hoffenheim, but at Tottenham it just hadn't really worked. I mean, this was his first Premier League start, I think, since he started against Norwich. I think we worked out it was January 2020, which is, you're looking at, what's that, almost coming up to 2 years, which is madness. But he was really good. I was so happy for him. I hate it when players, especially through no fault of their own, really, just have an absolute injury nightmare. And, Conte's bigged him up. A lot of praise for him in recent weeks after he came back from the injury. And then, of course, as sometimes young people do, they made an absolute mess of it in Mura, got himself sent off with a really overly zealous, daft challenge to get a second yellow. But this was his big moment. And like I said, ahead of the match, I saw lots of people on social media when I put that I thought Sessegnon was probably going to start. A lot of people going, oh my God, Salah's going to destroy him. And I think it is the biggest testament to Ryan Sessegnon's performance, and Ben Davies as well. I honestly forgot Salah was playing at moments yesterday. I really did. And that's not to be, and that's by no way me being, trying to slate Mo Salah, because Salah for me is probably up there with best players in the world right now, if not playing the best football of anyone right now. But I honestly, genuinely forgot he was on the pitch. And that is hugely down to Sessegnon and in part Davies as well. Sessegnon did a lot of really good defensive work, but he also freed himself kind of those shackles of having to work so hard in his own half. But he got through it forward a few times. Early on, so I think it might have been Dyer played him through on that one. He took a really headed it on, and Oxlade-Chamberlain, Alexander-Arnold got his foot in just as he was trying to get it across to Kane. And then the last action of the first half, Sessegnon did get into the box down the left, really worked hard, kind of got past a couple of people, pulled it back to Kane, and Kane kind of made a bit of a hash of it. It was really good. And what I find, when a manager likes a player, when they try to fit them into answers where they haven't been asked about them. And that's what I found quite a bit yesterday. I think there was about 3 occasions, including to that question that I asked Conte about Winks and Dele. He even said to me, and Sessegnon too, he played well. And I noticed he did that, I think, to the BBC. I think he did it to Sky as well. He just kind of wanted to get out of it. And Ryan Sessegnon did well as well. And I think I'd say with Ryan Sessegnon, in a match against such high-level opposition, against Salah, I think he not only said, look, I'm your man to be like the backup for Sergio Reguilon, I think he actually laid down a marker to say, I'm actually going to battle him for this left wing-back slot as well. I'm not just going to be the guy who fills in for him and plays every other week so he can have rest. I want to be the first choice one. And I'd actually say, and this is probably just is a snapshot of a moment of time rather than any bigger pattern that can be taken from it. But I did think against Liverpool that actually when Sessegnon came off and Reguilon came on, I actually felt that Spurs weren't as effective down the left-hand side. Weren't as dangerous going down the left. And there may be other factors that Liverpool may have done something tactically that slightly nullified that. I don't know. But I only with my eyes, thought that actually Spurs' attacking play down the left did drop a little bit. I think Ali had come off as well. And I thought he and Sessegnon had linked up really well. So yeah, loads of positives with those 3 players. Tongi had an interesting game. He played a lovely assist for Harry Kane's goal. Really nicely weighted pass. But I'd probably say he made the least impact out of those. I'm just trying to think. I think Winks picked up a yellow card as well, didn't he? I think he played most of the second half with a yellow card, which maybe makes his performance all the more impressive against Liverpool with all their quick movement. But sorry, back to Tongi. Tongi, yeah, he did okay. There was a few moments I was watching Conte absolutely saying to him, like, come on, like, press, get to this man. And Tongi in his style, he likes to take his time sometimes, which obviously we'll have to see how Tongi works and how he adapts to Conte and what he wants. He was the one that obviously got subbed first. It was about an hour in. He didn't look happy. You could contrast the 2 ways they came off. When Tongi came off, he walked off at the speed of slug. Honestly, it was so painfully slow. Whereas when Dele got taken off, he sprinted off the pitch in order to get Lucas on it. And I thought that was really interesting. You can take from that what you will. You could take from that Tongi was so disappointed, and that showed. You could take from it that maybe Dele was thinking more about the team, maybe, if you want to go a little bit deeper. And that is something that Conte said about Tongi. It's about maybe thinking about the team more than himself. I may be massively overanalyzing one moment, and maybe, just his disappointment got the better of him. But yeah, I just thought that was quite interesting. So Dele really, he sprinted off from the other side of the pitch, whereas Tongi, it was very much it was a real kind of I'm feeling sorry for myself a bit moment, which I'm a big Tongi fan, but I just thought that was quite interesting. So yeah, I don't know whether he massively made his claim over Giovanni Lo Celso, who obviously is back now and was on the bench. But like I say, it was a lovely assist. It was very nice. Something I forgot to mention as well before the game, which was quite interesting. The 10 outfield players for Tottenham that were starting the game, they split them into 2 teams, one with Bibbs, and they added in Japhet Tanganga and Joe Rodon, one on either side. And they played this really compact, cluttered rondo. If you're not aware what a rondo is, it's a bit like a piggy in the middle idea. It's essentially you've got to keep the ball, the other team tried to get it off you. And it was a very tight, it wasn't quite a circle, it was more, despite the fact it was a rondo, it was more like a rectangle, almost like a mini pitch. But it was so cluttered with bodies that essentially it was preparing Tottenham, attuning their mind to what Liverpool would do, coming out, pressing, getting in their faces, trying to interrupt their passing. And I felt it worked. The opening 10 minutes, to be fair, Liverpool did get the better. I think Tottenham did still panic, but I think it was almost as if they had to just remember Tottenham. Oh, yeah. That's what we did in the warm-up before the match, isn't it? And they started to calm down. And as the game wore on, Liverpool started to tire, whereas I felt Tottenham looked more and more composed. But I just thought that was a little interesting insight that maybe if you weren't at Stadium you wouldn't have seen. What else I want to do? Lots of missed chances. I think we went through every missed chance pretty much. Son had a funny game. He again looked like a real threat again. But there were just a couple of moments, a bit like Dele. He just seemed a little bit rusty, a little bit of a decision-making thing. There was one moment where he was eventually offside, though it didn't really matter. But he ran through and he kind of attempted to round Alisson, but just kind of overhit it into his arms as he was trying to get round him. Again, it was offside, so it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But yeah, it was a funny one. But then he came up trumps again, and he scored the equalising goal. And it's very difficult to criticise Sonny because he's always there for Tottenham when they need him, pretty much. He really is. So I think that's everything probably from the Liverpool game, which, yeah, it was cracking. It was really, really good. And like I say, the crowd were fully involved. And I felt like the Conte blueprint was there. And his tactical nous as well in the way they were set up. But really, it frustrated Liverpool a lot. And like I say, I think Liverpool resorted to long ball tactics because they didn't really know what to do. And that's probably why Klopp was so annoyed afterwards, as well as some refereeing decisions that, yes, to be fair, they probably should have had. What else we got? We have to talk about the UEFA decision. If you have not seen it, UEFA have ruled, their appeals body have ruled that Tottenham have forfeited, or had forfeited that match against Rennes, and it's a 3-0 victory to Rennes, which means Tottenham's road to Tirana, as my colleague Rob Guest likes to call it, is over. No more Europa Conference League. It's a funny one. Within the club, I'd heard that Spurs are very annoyed. And there was talk about potentially some kind of legal action, going to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. They put out a statement, really, which very much kind of said, we'll accept this, which kind of went at odds a bit to that, like what I was hearing behind the scenes. Because ultimately, and this is very much my view on it, Tottenham have, for the absolutely correct health and safety reasons, not played a match. I'm sorry, but whatever UEFA rules state about, you must have less than 13 players for a game to be called off. I'm sorry, but you need to use your brains. You need to use logic. You've got to look at a scenario where your set in stone rules don't really benefit everyone, because Tottenham had a huge outbreak of COVID. They had a big outbreak. I got told off by someone the other day saying, don't call it a large outbreak. It's not a large outbreak. It was. In the end, Tottenham had 9 first-team players test positive for COVID, 5 members of the coaching staff, and a lot of under-23s. A lot of under-23s. That is a big outbreak within a football club. Obviously, there would have been a certain amount of those before the Rennes game. However, they had positive cases on the day after the Rennes game, and then the day after that as well. That was spreading. I think it would have been very fortunate for Rennes had they managed to come into end 17 and get out essentially without taking positive cases back with them. I really, I think it would have happened. And I don't know. I just feel this is like a ruling against common sense, a ruling against doing the right things. Tottenham's training ground was closed on the advice of the government. It was closed for 3 days. I don't understand. It's almost a bit like, I personally feel that Tottenham and Rennes could have played this game at some point before the playoff rounds, which are in, mid-February they start? But I kind of felt almost, it seems like Rennes were like, oh, well, it's your lookout. We wanted to play. You couldn't. And UEFA was like, oh, it's such a pain to do it all. And now we're in this scenario where Tottenham are out of the competition. I don't think it's the right decision. If Tottenham don't pursue kind of another course of action against it, I can only presume it's because they feel that maybe it's balanced out with the benefits that they'll get from it. Because if I'm looking at it as a money person, I'm looking at lost gate receipts. You'd have had a home leg for every round you go through. TV revenue, all the marketing share. probably would get a little bit of money. We're not talking Champions League money or even Europa League money, but you're talking about money that all goes towards the team, and strengthening the team and things like that. The only thing I can presume is that Tottenham have looked at the scenario and thought to themselves, well, if we don't have any European football, we can fit in our postponed Premier League games, and it gives Conte more time on the training pitches with his players. If Tottenham win their 3 games in hand, even if they get 7 points from their 3 games in hand, currently that would put them in the top 4. So I wonder whether Tottenham have looked at it and thought, you know what, this could actually free Conte up just to do what he does best, and if he gets Tottenham into the top 4, then that's worth far more than what we would have got from a full run in the Europa Conference League. If you're looking at it on monetary terms, that's what I'm saying. And look, we saw what Conte did in his first, was it second? It might have been his second season. The season he won the Premier League with Chelsea. He had no European football to worry about. Tottenham did. Obviously, that year they finished second, didn't they, to Chelsea? Whereas Chelsea had a full kind of focus on the domestic stuff, and they won the league. And I do wonder whether... I've kind of been one who's been looking very much to next season. I think this season is almost like a bit of a trial and error for Conte to kind of work out his team, work out his players. Hasn't had the proper pre-season, and then maybe, with a big summer, you go into next season. A big summer, I mean, transfers also pre-season, and he goes into next season, and really Spurs could be right up there having a proper go. But if you're going to take a positive from it, and look, I'm very much in the camp, I want Spurs to be in every competition and try to win every trophy they can, because Spurs haven't won, one trophy in 20 years that ENIC have been in charge. It's not good enough. I don't think we can be snippy and turn our nose up at trophies and silverware. So I'm very much of that. However, if you're going to look at it in a positive light, then I guess that's what it is. I think it frees up Conte to do what Conte does and improve players, work with them more on the training ground, have a full week sometimes to focus on a game rather than preparing for one game. Immediately after that game, you have a recovery day, then you get maybe a day to prepare for the next game, but you can't really go full on because they only played a game 48 hours before. It's very different preparing a team for technically three games within 7 days than it is just the 2 games bookending a week. Very, very, very different. And yeah, maybe this is what will happen. Maybe this is the way it will work out for Tottenham, that it may be a silver lining, as it were, to that cloud. But it's a shame. You don't want to be out of Europe. Fans love the European away days. I love going on the European trips as well. It's always fascinating to see new cultures and new styles of football and new ways people do things. But that is over for this year. Maybe next season. Unless, like I say, Spurs do decide they're going to really fight it and something happens. But even Vitesse, I saw their little statement. They seem to feel that Tottenham aren't going to contest it, but there you go. Looking ahead, I understand in the coming days, well, he's essentially said it himself, that Conte is going to have he's going to talk to Fabio Paratici, Daniel Levy. I think Steve Hitcher would be involved as well as part of the transfer committee thing. He's going to have a chat with them about his findings of his evaluation of his players, and they're going to talk about the January transfer window. What I understand is that they had a meeting a few weeks back with the same people involved, which is where Conte told them he wanted another month to properly evaluate his players. And this is the thing, whereas you or I or anyone, may look at players and just say, it's time for them to go. And that was me. I was an impression of me there. Conte may be looking at things in a different way. And like with Harry Winks against Liverpool, he may be seeing something within a player that he thinks, yeah, but I'm Antonio Conte. I can get the best out of that player. And actually, in the formation and system I have in mind, I can turn them into my next Victor Moses, Gary Cahill, whatever you want. The players at Chelsea who maybe unfairly, if you want to say, were labelled by others as being not the stars of the team, maybe being just average players or just above average players, whatever people were saying at the time. And he turned them into integral parts of that team. So it's all very well for us to look at something and say, oh, yeah, we've seen them for years, and they can't cut it. Under a different manager with a very different way of doing things, different players come to the fore. And I think that's quite important for Tottenham as well, that he's having a proper look at all the players they've got before he makes his decision. So, yeah, he asked to have another month. And I think in these next few days, he's going to have that follow-up meeting. You know, people get quite annoyed when I say that I don't think there's huge amounts to spend at Tottenham. That is kind of the January window. I don't think very few clubs budget a lot of money for the January window anyway. I want to say huge amounts. I'm talking about big money. You know, who spends big money in the January transfer window anyway? It's so rare. I think, I've said this before, I think there will be movement. I think there'll be one or two go out, especially with the lack of European competition now. That really does cut down on the minutes for, I was saying earlier, like the likes of Dele, someone like Joe Rodon as well. Are they going to get the minutes they want? Joe Rodon, especially when Romero comes back, although Conte's already said Joe Rodon is fighting with Eric Dyer for a spot. And if you're playing maybe more once a week, once the festive period is gone, where's the chance for those second players to kind of come into the team? So, yeah, I think you'll see a few go out, and then that opens up the room, and it opens up maybe a bit of money as well on top of whatever is there to spend. I personally feel that any funds there will probably be more directed at the summer window. But, you know, maybe they look at what Conte's doing and they think, look, we just have to make this happen. Or Paratici managed to work wonders and get another. Spurs, I feel they always look to do a loan then to buy. I think that's in the modern way. I think a lot of clubs now do that, especially in a post-pandemic world, or technically still a pandemic world, where, you know, Tottenham alone lost £150 million in revenue. You know, you don't just suddenly make that up by magic. Obviously, they've had to be quite clever with the restructuring their long-term debt and everything. But I think a lot of clubs now are looking at the loan-to-buy model. But you've still kind of, you know, you've still got to set that option in there to buy them at the end of it all, or obligation, which is probably more risky if the money isn't there. You know, clubs may be worried that Sunday games will be shut down again, and crowds won't be allowed in, and then suddenly that revenue's all gone again. And yeah, this isn't the most stable football world right now. But yeah, no, I did. I think I said this, didn't I, in a video either a couple of weeks ago about, you know, I don't think there's huge money. I saw one of those aggregator accounts put something out, and the replies underneath, my God, I got it. I spoke for an hour about a range of subjects, and one thing I mentioned in about probably 2 seconds, people were going, oh my God, it was like the world had ended. But I think there will be changes. I think there'll be movement. But I'd be also excited about what Conte can do with what he's got as well. I think we maybe get too excited about transfers, and again, they are exciting. Of course, they are. Everyone has fresh hope and belief, but not every new signing actually ends up being better than what you've got. But yeah, like I say, I think there will be movement. I think there will. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, actually, in his own words, I forgot I wrote that down. He said, in this meeting he's going to have with Paratici and Levy, we'll be speaking about the situation to see if there's a way to improve the squad and in which way. So there you go, in Conte's own words. Up next, West Ham Cup game, obviously, on Wednesday night, which will be very interesting to see how Conte approaches that, how many of the players back from COVID are now able to play more of a part, whether he changes it up a lot or just makes a couple of changes. Obviously, he's then straight back into action on Boxing Day with Palace, the visitors at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. West Ham, obviously, were doing very well in their last 3 games. They've stuttered and stumbled slightly. They had their game at the weekend called off, didn't they? So they will be fresher, probably be able to play a stronger team. It's not going to be easy. Certainly not. With David Moyes, West Ham is a very different proposition, but it's another competition for Tottenham to try and advance in. You win this, you're in the semi-finals, which would be huge. Tottenham needs silverware. Just think of the belief it would give them. So it's going to be a good match on Wednesday. I hope it's a better one than the last one. The 1-0 at West Ham. It really needs to be better than that. But different manager, different ethos, different feelings around the club. And yeah, hopefully something positive, and a different kind of positive to what we've been used to at Tottenham in recent weeks. So I think that's everything I was going to talk about today. I think I've pretty much covered everything. Yep, covered all of that. So yeah, I'll hopefully do. I might try and squeeze another one of these in towards the end of the week, possibly if I can. So I'm not going to say. Well, I'll say Merry Christmas now if I don't get the chance to do that, but I'm hopeful I might be able to. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.